What's up, family? It's Conversations with Kobe. It's back again. It's Wednesdays. This is what I do. I pick the minds of some fantastic people to see what their secret sauce is. I sit and talk to a bunch of interesting people who do some fantabulous things and find out why they do what they do and how they do it. So today, well, wait. I'm going to give you a little story before I get in for today. So I have my mother-in-law. I love her to death, right? But she is one of the funniest, dare I say, nicely shady people. And so we were at the wedding. What was it? The bridal shower. And she gets up and tells a story about how much she likes me and all these things. And she said, when she first met me, I just talked and talked and talked and talked. And then she had to get up and go to the bathroom. As soon as she was getting ready to get up, I said, did you hear about my trip to Africa? So, I'm laughing, I'm being funny, but I do talk a lot and I do love telling people about my trip to Africa. So today, we're going to talk about one of our Neo Noire travelers. And it's my man, it's my friend, it's my brother, Jide Ehmika. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, bro. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm amazing, man. I'm amazing. At least that's what my wife tells me.
You looking good though, bro. What's up?
Thank you. Everything is up, man, and I'm blessed to be able to have this conversation with you. And I don't want to get too off, but I want people to let's talk about Jide. Who, if I was to ask you who is Jide, what would you say?
Oh man, I would say a family man, a black man, someone just trying to make his way through the world. I guess I don't know. That's a deep. You start off with the deep questions, bro. There's gonna be some softballs.
I thought that was a toss up.
It was open ended. We're gonna have a deep conversation about Oh man, go ahead.
Man. No, you go, brother. It's on you today.
Hey, I was gonna say, what do you want to know, man? Is like how can I,
Well, you said a few things. You said you're a father, you're a black man, and you're trying to get through the world. And I think you're trying to do more. I think you're trying to get to see the world. But first, before we get to your passion, right, of traveling, how did you get there?
Oh, that's okay. So this is, I guess, a little bit easier. Well, a couple of things. For one, for me, traveling has been something I've been doing since I was a child. Like I had a passport since I was a couple months old. Like I come from an immigrant family. My family comes from Africa. My dad's side comes from Nigeria. My mother's side comes from Liberia. I went to both as a kid before I was even like 4 or 5 years old. I lived in Nigeria for a little bit when I was a teenager. So for me, travel has always been there. Like it's never been, something that was outside of my scope.
Okay. And you said Liberia. I have an aunt that lives in Liberia. She has a rubber plant there.
Oh, yeah.
Rubber plant farm, rather. But also, so Jide.
Yeah.
The immigrant kid from Nigeria / Liberia, right?
Okay.
Comes to the U.S.
Well, I was born in the U.S.
Okay, you were born in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? And now you're an entrepreneur. I would almost say serial entrepreneur.
Okay.
In technology, right? So what do you do in technology first? Let's talk about that.
Okay, so what I do essentially is I build companies. I take things from ideas to the final product, or if you will. And that's something, problem solving, putting things together, building things from scratch. That's something I've always done since I was younger. So just to back up, actually, I didn't even come in thinking I was going to get into tech. That's not how it went. When I actually started, my career in finance. Okay. Actually, I graduated from Temple, like you said. I hopped right into finance, right into I was on the big five accounting firm, right into accounting. That's what I was doing, the corporate thing, 70, 80 hours a week. And then I met somebody. The good thing about that is that you meet people at these different companies that you go to. And I met somebody, and he was a project manager. And basically, I will never forget this. He worked for Nestle. He just flew the world. And he was just like, yeah, that's just what I do. And I was just like, yo, how do I do that? That's what I want to do. That, what I mean? At the time, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to fly around the world, work for a big company, and just do that. And that's really how I got into it, because the only way for me to get from finance there without like starting all over was trying to get into, you know, project management or transformation, like what corporate America calls organizational transformation. So taking companies from the analog to the digital, like, you know, so a lot of that kind of stuff. So that was the best way to do it. And I had to go to grad school to do that because I needed, you know, to get my grad degree to, you know, just do the things you needed to do. So, you know, that's really what, and then that tied into travel. And that's really what kicked me off, because at the time there was an organization that was given the degree for the program that I wanted. And they said they had 3 options for me. I could do it right here, because I was in Washington, D.C. at the time working. I could do it right here in D.C. at George Washington University. I could do it in Germany, or I could do it in France. Or in the UK was when I went, so I can do it in the UK. So a big part of it was I already had student loans from undergrad. So like I already didn't want to do the expensive thing. Like whatever it was that I was doing, I was like, okay, it got to be the cheap thing. Getting anything at George Washington was at least $50,000-$60,000, right? Which meant, you know, the loans and all that. I was like, at least, right? And I was like, I don't want to do that. Even for a couple of years, I don't want to do that. However, going to school in Europe was like $8,000-$9,000. And I was just like, oh, well, yeah, that's a I can do that. You know what I mean? So so that's what kicked it off. So I packed my bags. I took the exams, applied, you know, did interviews, did all that, packed my bags, you know, flew off to France. I picked Paris, by the way. I picked France. Flew off to France, and yeah, bro. And then I lived there for a year, then doing my grad program.
Wow. And so that spurred your idea. So it's kind of funny now that we talk about this, because as you talk about it, I do you see all the connections that come together?
Yeah.
To build what you're putting together.
Yeah.
Like you understand how finance works, right? Then you start to understand project management and tech. And then you love to travel. It takes you across the world. And when you come home, after a few years or so, you start NoireBNB. How did that happen, and why did that happen?
So, I mean, like you said, everything works together, right? So the what happened was I went to Brazil for the World Cup in 2014. And I'll never forget, because that was my first time using Airbnb, which had been around for a couple of years, but you know, I never really used it. But using Airbnb, but abroad, you know what I mean? So I went in there and I just had like a regular picture, you know, went up or whatever. Hey, you know, whatever. It was the best experience I've ever had, like renting a place. It was so much better than a hotel. I remember thinking, I will never, ever use a hotel again. That was my thought at the time, like coming from Brazil. Like I was treated with respect and dignity. I actually remember that it was a woman who owned like in Ipanema Beach. She had like a couple properties, and one of the bathroom wasn't working in one. And, you know, it was like, oh, you know, but we have another one that you can use. Like it was just a good experience. You know what I mean? Like it was really just treated with dignity. So I remember having good positive experiences about that. But what happened was the very next year, 2015, a friend of mine linked me with a mutual friend who he had just had a bad experience with his Airbnb in Atlanta, where the cops had like kicked in the door because I guess the neighbors called in and said they saw some black guys in the house. They thought it was robbing it. Cops kicking the door, you know, with the guns pointed. This is after like, you know, Michael Brown. So like, you know what I mean? There's tensions like this is not, you know, it's not a good time for all of this, right? And like at that same time, I was trying to use Airbnb, but I was trying to use it here in the States. I forgot where I was going. I think I was going to Philly or something like that, right? But people kept canceling on me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a different type of experience, right? And I realized, I was like, at the time, I was like, let me put on my corporate look. So I changed my picture to me in the suit, you know, had all the things, put some pictures of me in Brazil and other places smiling, you know, and then I got a place, right? And it was like, oh, damn, it's just something you got to do. But, you know, it's just something you got to do. So those two things kind of happened at the same time. And, you know, we linked up and he was like, yo, it's kind of ridiculous that, you know what I mean, that you kind of got to go through this with Airbnb. I was like, yeah, I agree, actually. So his post actually went viral because he put a picture of him and the police on his Twitter page. It actually went viral. So Airbnb contacted us, flew us out to San Francisco, the headquarters, like, because at this time, this is like the first big thing that's happened to them, basically, right? And this is before Trump, so you know people don't really know how to handle social media crisis in this era, right? So they flew us out there to San Francisco headquarters. You know, hey, how can we, you know, whatever. So he's thinking that okay, what you guys should do is Airbnb/Noire or just something like that for Black travelers. And I'm like, yeah, and this is how it can work. This can be the structure of it, and you'll make a ton of money for y'all. And like, they're like, we'll call you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll let you know. But thanks for coming out. Sorry this happened to you. Right? So hitting them up. Hey, what's going on? Just run around. Finally, he's like, yo, let's just do this. Let's just build this. And I was just like, damn, you're right, bro. Like, let's do that. And actually, I had tech experience because I just built an app with my brother Chi Ude. We built Happy Birthday Digital. So we had already had I just had experience building an app. So I kind of knew like where to go, like how to do, the tech things. I kind of knew like I guess I was in that field at that time. So and then it kicked off. And from there, it kind of really just took off. And this is at the end of 2016. And it took off. That was really the thing that surprised me. It took off more than we were even ready for it to be honest.
So explain to the people who don't know what NoireBNB is and how that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lot like Airbnb, but we rent villas and apartments, and you can we have hosts. They're usually Black. A lot of them aren't though, and it's for Black travelers to feel comfortable. So you're not going to get canceled on. You're not going to get, rearranged or people telling you it's not available or all sorts of nonsense that, that happens to you when you're trying to book a place, especially doing big events. That's what people don't understand, right? It's like, if you're just coming, for example, if you're just coming to DC on a random weekend, yeah, you'll probably get a place. But if you're coming on DC on, whatever it is, like, Howard Homecoming or something like that, then all of a sudden people start acting funny because, they know Black people coming into town and they're not trying to book with you and all this kind of stuff. But with, NoireBNB, that's not a problem because obviously it's within the culture. So, yeah.
Okay. That's dope. That's dope. And now you've even turned that up into media and you're doing the Travel and Turn Up podcast. See, that's why I call you a serial entrepreneur. You took something, you figured a way. And you're also doing your own thing, and we'll get back to that in a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the Travel and Turn Up podcast.
Yeah, so this actually came together in Ghana in December 2019. So what actually happened was we're 2 years into NoireBNB. At this point, we had an initial investor come in. The company's like structuring itself now, taking the direction that it wants to go, right? And I remember I was talking to this investor, Silicon Valley investor, white guy actually, and I'm trying to pitch him what I do, like what NoireBNB is, right? And he's like, "Well, do you have a blog or a podcast?" And I was just like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, you can't be a serious founder if you don't have a podcast or a blog or just something to get yourself out there." So I was like, "Oh, wow, like that's kind of crazy what he's up." But I thought about it, I was like, "Yeah, he's right." So I was like, "All right, well, what can I get out there that kind of like represents me or that will be interesting?" Because really, it's about my interest. Because what I focus on, Kobe, is just work. Like, I focus on building the stuff I got to build. Like, I'm very much like, hey, head down and, doing my thing. But I don't, something like media, that's not really me. I don't like doing the whole social media thing. I don't like being out fame. I don't want to be famous. Like, that's never been like a goal of mine. Right. So like, but it's crazy. I mean, I started the podcast and I was like, oh, you know what? I can do it around travel. But what I realized is I can do it around the thing that I think really, really matters. And which is, Black travel and utilizing travel as the first step towards, recognizing our collective power. So that's really what made me start the podcast. And I was in Ghana in December, and a girl by the name of Tiffany Anderson, she owns The Way to Africa. It's like the largest destination management company in Africa, owned by a woman. And she's Jamaican. And another guy, David, he owns a travel collective out the UK. They normally get like 1,500 people traveling like all over the world, Black people. And he's out in London, but we were just in Ghana, just talking, just like me and you were talking. And I was like, oh, this is a podcast. Like, what I mean? This is it. And and that's when we started.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that because I put Neo Noire Traveler because it seems like now there's a renaissance for Black travelers. Right? Talk about that and what you see that.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. And honestly, I think it's everything that came together. Instagram has a lot to do with it. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think for sure the the Afro beats has a lot to do with it. Just accepting of other music. Also, the fact that around the middle of the decade, you saw a lot of like new players coming to the travel space. So I'm talking about like Emirates Airlines, Etihad Airlines, and they started giving these crazy discounts. So people were flying to Bali for like $300 and that kind of thing. So like, that had a lot to do with it, like, to spur people to think about travel. But yeah, all those things coming together, I think, we saw ourselves in different places that were cool or places that you're not usually used to seeing them. And then we saw other people that look like us, talk like us, act like us in different places that you're not used to seeing them. And I think it kind of sparked something. So yeah, I mean, we're still in the middle of it, and I hope it continues.
So why do you think Black travel is important?
Okay, so this is gonna sound selfish, but the honest reason is that I'm just tired of being treated like I deserve the worst of everything everywhere I go. It's really a selfish reason. Like, it's like, I wish it was like a super deep reason I tell people, but because, when I started, I didn't start like, oh, I'm going to do travel and I'm going to change the world and all this kind of, like, that really wasn't, I've always been like, how can I build something to make, some money, get in the market, all that kind of stuff. That's how I've thought before. But it started when I went to France, right? And I always tell people, when I was in France, that was the very first time that I understood what it was like to come from a place of privilege, like truly come from a place of privilege. Because like I walked in, I remember I had a hoodie, I had like some Timbs, like I was like, I look like an American, like, just black kid or whatever, right? Walked into a bank, pulled out my American passport, was like, yeah, I need to open an account. I didn't even speak French. Like, I need to open an account. I walked out there in 30 minutes with a bank account, checkbook, a whole bank account, right? Now that don't sound crazy to, I guess, anybody. But when you talk to French people, especially Black French people who aren't American, who are from, West Africa or North Africa, when you talk to people, Moroccans and that kind of thing, that's the craziest shit they ever heard. They're like, I can't just walk into a bank, show my Moroccan passport and open a bank account. It takes months to open a bank account. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I went to Paris. I didn't have a place to stay. I went there like, oh, I'm gonna just rent a spot when I get there. And I sure enough rented a spot the day I got there. Again, that sounds crazy to Black people who aren't American when in France, because they're like, nah, bro, they run your background, you're this, they want you to pay a year in advance, all this different stuff. I was like, I didn't have to do none of that. I just showed my American passport and I was good. And I realized that, that's the privilege that I get as a Black person traveling, that's presenting American. I'm American, I have the passport, I'm going to be treated with that respect. And then I realized, I'm like, hold on, that's how white people get treated in America. So I was like, oh shit, this is what, excuse me, I mean for cuss. I was like, this is what it feels like. I was like, this is crazy, the privilege I have. This is crazy. Like, I'm talking, and traveling around Europe is when I really saw it, and I was just like, okay, like, Black people around the world, it don't matter where you're from, are treated with the worst of everything purely on account of you being Black. Because it still hits you when people don't know I'm American. I will get followed around. I got followed around, for example, in the store, like going to my house in France. You know what I'm saying? If I opened my mouth and spoke, he would have stopped following me. But me just looking like this with headphones on, he didn't know, he thought maybe I was one of those kids from the banlieue or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I got followed around there. And I realized that disrespect that we face, that lack of power that we face around the world, is because we don't have a source of power anywhere in the world that like demands the respect of everyone else. And like I say that with like, when you look at the way, for example, after the coronavirus, a lot of Africans in China were out in the street. I remember they were evicted. So there's video of them out in the street. The ambassador from Nigeria had to go to China and try and talk to people because like they were really like, just mistreating them. However, I have a buddy who was in China and, Black, and they're American, so it was no problem. It's like, oh, I never dealt with nothing like that. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And you think about it, and it's like, because the Chinese not going to respect the African because there's nothing to respect. They'll never do that to someone from Israel. They'll never do that to somebody from the UK. They'll never do that to somebody from, what I mean? There's countries you just won't do that to, right? And even if you say, okay, but not the Western countries, a country like Saudi Arabia, which is not a Western country, people don't really do that to them either. You know what I mean? Or their citizens, you know what I mean? Because there's a power, there's a source of power there somewhere,
behind them.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay, I realize the game now. We have to have our own source of power, whatever that is. And the only way that's happening is if we connect with each other, if we meet each other, invest in each other, transcribe capital with each other. Like we really got to work together to do it.
Wow, that got deep. I didn't expect it to go that deep, but that's kind of dope. It's dope. It ain't a problem. I love that. So now that you're in the space, right? What motivates you to continue to grow? Besides that one part you just explained, a lot of it, but what else motivates you, or who motivates you, you know, right now to continue to build and create?
I mean, my family actually. So I have kids, so that's really like what has really been. If you ask me, like when the pandemic hit, the timing is really kind of crazy because I remember we came right back from Ghana. We're loading up, you know, for that year's trips and to do all the stuff that we want to do, and then the pandemic hits. You can't go anywhere for a year. I mean, travel still hasn't even really, you know, recovered all the way. Like, you know, I mean, I think this year will probably be the first big year that is back, and you know, at that point, I'm home, but I'm home with toddlers. You know, and my daughter was born, and I was just like, oh, you know, let me take the time and just chill with her. And really that has put a new spark in my back, because everything I just told you before about, oh, it's selfish, I don't want to go and get the worst of everything, I don't want to get treated poorly when I go to different airports in different countries. I want that now to apply to my daughters too. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want her to live in a world where that's not possible. She's not treated with respect, or she's treated with suspicion, or where, you know, she's required to pay more because people think that she wouldn't have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want that for her either. So that's what motivates me, man. But yeah, man, like, you know, the travel is a piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. I think the first step is just us meeting each other.
I hear that. That's dope. And how do I put this question? It came to mind, but it left my mind.
Okay.
What do you think the next steps are in the evolution of what you're doing?
Or in the evolution of Black travel? Well, I mean, we're seeing it. So, I mean, the other thing is that I think that's happening is that Black America is really coming to the forefront as a major power in the global Black diaspora. And, you know, a lot of that, like I said, that blue passport count for a lot, you know, like, you know, you have that backing behind you, you earn dollars. So, for example, when I take people to Ghana, for example, and it's just like, you know, they're doing the math in their head.
Wait.
Yeah.
I ain't get an invite.
Oh, bro, what's going on? What you trying to do this year?
We're going to have to talk about that. I'm a little offended right now.
Oh, man.
I'm a little offended, man. But we'll talk about that later. All right, so when you take people to Ghana, go ahead.
Yeah, so, you know, I take people to Ghana, they'll go in the market, and, you know, they'll be haggling over some prices or something, and they'll come out and they'll be like, man, I can't believe I paid, it's like $3 for this, you know, this thing, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, like a piece of something that was made or artwork or something. And I'm like, yeah, you got to remember, like, you earn dollars. Like, you know what I mean? The vast majority of the world earns like $10 a day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, you earn dollars. That's when you take yourself out of that situation, which is America, into another situation with, you know, some of that money, you can do a lot, which is why I talk to people about investing. You know, you're looking for property, you can get a property here, an investment property, getting land. You know, just I talk to people about that.
So it's funny because before I got married, I told you I went to Tanzania, and I really thought about getting a home, because you can spend 50 grand and have a palace over in Tanzania with electricity and everything else, and you don't have to worry about the same taxes. And you don't understand the difference when you're part of the majority.
Yeah.
And what I laugh, because I'm gonna tell you how they knew I wasn't from Tanzania. My teeth. Because we have fluoride in the water. Most Tanzanians have, and some of the Kenyans have red stains, or because they don't use the chloride in the water. So that's how they would know. Because you really, when you go over there, that looks like Pookie from down the block.
It's unbelievable. It's uncanny, isn't it? I mean, well, I guess my family is West African, so but
you can't tell. It doesn't matter.
We're the same people. I mean, but you know, in the cooking, the food, the way we dance, just the norms between, like, things that are understood. You can get Kobe, I'm gonna tell you right now, man. I'm gonna pick you up. I'll put you in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, French West Africa, bro. You'll get around without even understanding the language. Just the body language, things would just be so familiar to you. You'd be like, "Oh, I know what he's saying. I know what they're talking about. I know what she wants."
That's how I felt,
you know
in Tanzania, and it was crazy because it's a beautiful place, and people don't really realize how beautiful. Like, I was in Dar es Salaam, standing on the edge of the ocean, on the side of a road, looking out into the ocean.
Beautiful,
it's crazy. And it was
East Africa is beautiful. East Africa is beautiful, man.
I landed in Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
At the base of the mountain. If nothing is more humbling than that, people can't get it. Yeah. But I get in there to say, like, and it was funny. I'm going to tell you an experience I had. This is before I was married. So if my wife always watches every show, so I don't want to get hurt. But when I was in Tanzania, I seen this beautiful woman.
Okay.
And we're friends to this day. And it was nothing ever happened. But she was mean to me at first. And when I went to speak to her, she was like, I don't think Black Americans wanted to come to Africa. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of us that want to come over here. But they're telling them the same things they're telling us about Africa. They're telling them about Americans. And so when we broke that ice, we created a beautiful friendship, you know? And so it was interesting, you know, to see that in that way. But I mean, I'm ready to roll. Huh?
So look at that. That's what I'm talking about. We got to meet each other, man. That's the first. I mean, it sounds silly, but that truly is the first step. Yeah. Like, you know, like you realizing how much more you have in common than you have apart. You know, like and really looking to each other to do business and you know, just connect like on a level, man. But yeah, man, that's beautiful, man. Come down. Yeah, I like that.
I gotta get some investment properties down there. We gotta talk about that. I need a travel spot. I need some place to go when it gets cold here.
Boom. Actually, you know what? And let me say this. I actually want to say this to the audience too, because this is what I tell people, right? Because I understand I'm not leaving the Caribbean out of this, because the Caribbean, those are Black islands. You know what I'm saying? And all I tell people is just, you know that there's options out there. So, for example, if I get people, it's like, I'm tired of going to Jamaica, or I'm tired of going to, like, you know, Bahamas. I want to go somewhere exotic. I want to go to Greece or whatever. I get that. You know what I mean? I want to go to Greece. You know what I'm saying? I went to Italy. It was beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? I understand, you know, doing that. But at the same time, try to like build into, like, don't dismiss Black travel destinations either. You know what I mean? Because there's really beauty there. So that's the one thing I definitely want to get across to the viewers is, like, you know, just that's what I try to preach more than anything else, man. If you can, try to hit a Black island or a Black place, because like you said, there's nothing like being the majority, bro. Nah. It's a totally different feeling. Yeah, it is a totally different feeling walking the streets.
I'm gonna say that for, like, because people don't think about Guyana. People don't think about some of the West Indies. Even like, it's one place that people, that's a whole nother thing. But I'll give you a thing. I was walking in Arusha, and a Caucasian male walked up the street, and he looked so out of place. And it was abnormal for me. It wasn't like walking in Philly though. It was a whole different vibe when you see your people at the when you come off the plane. We had an issue in Kilimanjaro, the airport. Everybody from the top of the airport to the bottom of the airport looked like me. That was inspiring, and it was interesting to see them work. Now, some of it, one of the airlines that was there, I thought was Soul Plane. but overall, you got to see the other stuff and really get to appreciate it and enjoy it. You know, so I got one other thing. If you had one person, because we're getting ready to leave, we got 2 minutes left. If you had one person, this is the last thing you want to leave people with, and you had something to tell them, who would that one person be, and what would you tell them?
Nah, this is a great question, man. See, because I want to get super deep with it, right? I want to tell like Nat Turner, like, yo, like, don't trust nobody. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I want to do with it. But you know, I know what I'm gonna say. I know the one person I'm gonna say this to. I'm gonna say this to a future generation, if you don't mind. I'm gonna say this to my daughter, and I'm the one thing I'm gonna leave her with is that, you know, you come from a beautiful people, and the story's just beginning for all of us. So that'll be my message.
That's dope. So look, I'm gonna leave y'all. I want you to know that this show is also brought to you by Melanin Magic Shea Butter. Yo, you got to get some of that.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Melanin Magic. It's a handmade shea butter. She also, it's a soror, Jassy. She makes shea butter, body oil or body butter, beard oil, and a few other products. Yo, I told people, I love it. I wear it every day now. My wife put some on, and it was bound chicka wow wow. I'm telling you. And then it's also brought to you by the UPS store on 3rd and Girard Street, Philadelphia, PA. If you want to send it, they'll ship it. If you want to send it, they'll ship it. 3rd and Girard, UPS store, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Take it easy. This is Conversations with Kobe, where we pick the brains of interesting, and people. Peace, brother, and thanks again.
Thanks, y'all, man. I appreciate it.